G'day Bomber fans, that was a great game of footy for neutrals, not as much for us. In the end, the better team won. It's a tough pill to swallow, it's two tough pills to swallow. It's the fact we lost so narrowly and the fact we are now only a mathematical chance for finals. We realistically have to beat both GWS and Collingwood to make it now, but that's for the future. Today it's a review of the recent game. Leave your votes down in below for the player of the match. 3, 2, 1, Bomb players only, you know the drill. So this was a really big game going into it. There was this surrounding nervous energy before. I was pacing around my room loading up KO. I didn't want to hear the pre-game discussion. I was that nervous, and Kyle Langford, the beautiful man, settled my nerves. I think that was a really telling opening goal because it showed how we would score from the contest, and we were up to the contest. That was the important part. We were up to the fight. We were arguably the better team in that first quarter. The only issue was our defense just could not stand up without Ridley. We had just about double the amount of entries, but only led by a point at quarter time. They looked dangerous scoring. They looked likely to score from every entry. Joel Amati, Sam Wicks, these aren't big names, but they are capable forwards when they get a good ball coming in their way. The worry for me was when Sydney would stop losing ground ball contests and start halving them. I was worried after that first term, and rightfully so. The second quarter showed us an important lesson in overcorrection. We were trying really hard to be direct, not chip it around in defense, and it played into their hands. We had a lot of the ball, but a lot of it was to their advantage. Lots of turnovers, lots of missed opportunities, lots of mistakes. They led by 19 points because they had more chances to go forward. We actually had a lot of control in that first half, but always looked second best moving the ball and finding chances to score. We were hot at the contest, but not clean. They were efficient, too efficient for us to handle. They don't have the toughest midfield, and we exposed them a little bit there, but they made us look second rate with their excellent ball use and our poor ball use. That third quarter was horrendous viewing. We trailed by as much as 37 points at one period, but it was horrendous for a half of the term. We settled just a tad late, and it proved to be significant. The fact that we could take a step back and slow down to speed up, stem their scoring to start our own. It's impressive. It's really impressive, and it shows we are not cooked, but the fact that we were in that position to start with 37 points down, that's just not good enough. We were overrun, and that's what lost us the game. The last term was a bit like that Port game. You think we are shot, but somehow we find a way back. I love that. I love that we can be in games despite being 7 goals down. We made it exciting when it didn't have to be. We made it thrilling, but in the end, it's a loss made by that Sydney surge. They kicked 6 or 7 in a row and killed us there. You have to be a very, very good team to win from that far down, and unfortunately we are not. It is a respectable loss. I am proud of the effort, but a disappointing one. So where did we lose this game of footy? Well, for starters, they were just clinical. 47 inside 50s for 26 scoring shots compared to our 69 inside 50s, the most for the year for us, I think, but just for 24 scoring shots. We entered a lot more. We repeat entered more. We had more contested ball, more clearances. We had more territory, but looked less dangerous. The KPIs suggest we should have won, but for all our territory, they just killed us with pace the other way back. It's a little bit like we played earlier in the year when we would just eat up entries and pick our way through opposition defenses. They did that to us, but they were just so good going inside 50. Goulden, Warner, McInerney, Parker, they're great users, and there are more, in fact, players that I could discuss. Those players were just better than Merritt and Parrish and Caldwell when going forward. Our mids had more of the ball, but you gotta say theirs had better games with the way they split our defense up. I should also say this game is proof that Jordan Ridley is our most important player. With him there, you not only have a capable ball user to exit D50 and find a good target, but an intercept player who knows when to come off his opponent. Nick Cox was alright in his new role, but nowhere near as good as Ridley would have been. It's a big loss, especially when you look at the turnover numbers, 80 to 75. 80 turnovers in a game of footy is a lot too much. I touched on it earlier in the video, and so did commentators when it was happening live, but I feel like we did overcorrect a bit by not touching on our uncontested marking game. There is a time and a place. We saw that with the Dogs last week, and it goes the other way too. There is a time to do it. When you are on the back foot conceding goal after goal, you do not try and approach the opponent with speed and power. You slow the game down and compress, and we did not. We seemed to be fueling their fire with our ball movement when they were surging. We were slow to react, and that cost us the game. We could have saved 2 or 3 goals by just playing red light footy earlier than we did. I did talk about inside 50 efficiency, and I think our forward setup needs to be highlighted separately. We are very Peter Wright reliant. There are 4 goals next to his name, but his night wasn't even that hot. He had the ball kicked on his head a lot. It's what we saw last year. We don't have many options when the ball is slow. We look good with pace, and we can find holes, but we only really have one contested marking option up forward. No Draper hurts. Wiedemann's form hurts as well. It's weird how we can look so potent without Wright and look the opposite with him. I know 15 goals is a good return, but we had so much of the ball in our forward 50, it needs to be questioned. I should also say Sydney were remarkable down back. I thought they would struggle with their injuries. they have, but McCartan and co really stood tall. I talked in the preview about Sydney's second tier players, the one that don't get the plaudits as much. Braden Campbell had 26 disposals, Wicks had 3 goals and 3 assists, Amadi kicked 4 goals. Those are lesser known players having huge impacts. Sydney do it every week, next week it will be different players. We don't have that up our sleeves. Snelling, Menzies, Guelphy, Durham, Bryan, even Cox right now, they just play a role. They play important roles, but for the most part they don't exceed that. Menzies can't kick 3 goals and assist 3 others, Wicks can. So even though our best players may have played better games in certain areas, our lesser known players did not play better games than theirs. I also want to touch on the baffling sub decision. Snelling at the moment is a better player than Davey, and he proved that when he came on. His link-up play is great. Davey coming on as sub could have ignited a spark with speed and tackling pressure. I thought the decision to bring Snelling on as a sub wasn't beneficial when you had other players that could have filled that role if Snelling started in the best 22. Are there any positives? There are plenty. For starters, we came back. We didn't win, but 37 points down, it looked really ugly. It had 60-point belting written all over it. I was really proud of the effort shown by our old heads and young kids. Everyone lifted in that last term, and it shows we can stay in games. We just need to do it more consistently. We couldn't against the Dogs. We could a week later against the Swans. It makes little sense if you ask me. How can we wrestle back momentum against teams like Sydney and Port, but not against Freo or the Dogs? I really liked the way our midfield stood up from a contested point of view. We were bullied last week, and we did a bit of bullying of our own on Saturday. Caldwell had over 10 clearances, Merritt a lot as well. Parrish and Hobbs were really prominent. We weren't all clean, but we were hot on the ball. That's more than what you can say for our showing last week. I want to say, I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion or not, but I think we are a better team with Nick Hind, especially late in games. He is damaging. He gives his all in both defense and when attacking. He runs himself into trouble, but I would rather see that than what we saw last week against the Dogs. I hope he stays in the team next week because he deserves a spot. All in all though, I'm cut. I'm bitterly disappointed that our season is now pretty much over. We are now relying on other results or having to win our next 4 games, and either way, I wouldn't say we deserve finals. Can we hold up in finals? It's hard to say, but we don't deserve to make it in the first place the way we've played in the last month or so. It's tough, but we do have to remember our pre-season expectations. Many said bottom 4, and from that first belting against the Hawks, we showed we are not bottom 4. We are a good team, nowhere near a great team though. On to the votes. 1 to Jai Caldwell. He had a terrific inside game, 12 clearances. He was our best mid, hit the scoreboard and was involved in a lot of scores. 2 to Dyson Heppel. That comeback was off the back of him in defense really. I thought he was fantastic. And 3 to Kyle Langford. 5 goals, some really nice moments leading up to other goals, good pressure as well. Any unlucky to miss out? Obviously Zach Merritt. I didn't think his impact matched his stats. I thought Caldwell was more eye-catching than Merritt. Hind and Phillips were some others. There were some others that were decent as well, but that's that. Video done. Leave your votes down and below. It was a tough loss. We have 2 games we must win coming up, so stay tuned to the previews for those matches. And next Friday I will also be reviewing the last few VFL games, but that is that. Cheers Dons fans.